Lots of fun last day of Camp in a Box for week 3. Hope you guys are having a great time. So we have another guest speaker with us here today, and that's Special Agent April Cameron. So I'm going to turn it over to her to talk a little bit about what she does.
Hello, campers. Everybody have a fun week?
Tell them put a thumbs up.
Okay, that's a thumbs up. Good. So I'm gonna just give me a minute while I try to switch my screen. In the interim, my name is April Cameron, and I'm a federal agent with the Department of Health and Human Services, and I'll explain what that means in a little while. But I also am Cameron's mom. I don't know if he looks familiar to some of you from some of the other classes from this week. He's also attending Camp in a Box, and he's part of Troop 10. And I see Ben's there too. Hi, Ben. He's also in Troop 10. I'm gonna go through the presentation, and I'm going to leave enough time for, what?
No, just continue.
That's fine. I'm gonna leave enough time for questions and answers. So if you guys have anything, you'll have a chance at the end to ask the questions. So just bear with me for a minute. What?
More.
Okay, there's a question in the chat. Yes, I have, my brother is Dan Cameron, and he is, let me just, okay. He is retired as the chief of police in the city of Newburgh, but he has retired, so he's now a pilot. Okay, let me share my screen. Okay, can I get a thumbs up? It works? Good, okay, great. So I'm gonna go through some of these slides and give you more of an idea of what I do. And people always assume that I work for the FBI. There are a lot of different federal agencies that cover different specialties. The FBI happens to be an agency that is also, they oversee a lot of different types of investigations as well. And we do work with them a lot. But there are many, many other federal agencies that are out there. I need to shrink this down. Okay. Okay, we can see Dan now. Okay. So the first slide explains a little bit about the Department of Health and Human Services, which is the agency that I work for, and we will just call it HHS for short. There's the Office of Investigations, which is the office that I work for, the department within the department that I work for. And we conduct different types of investigations. There's the Office of Audit Services, Office of Evaluation and Inspections, OSIG, which is counsel, they're the attorneys, and Office of the Executive Management. So each of the different branches would be responsible for different parts of our mission. But the Office of Investigations is what I'm going to be talking about today, because that's the office that I work for. So to give you a general idea, for this fiscal year, our agency is responsible to oversee $1 trillion in government spending, which is approximately a quarter of every federal dollar spent. So that money would cover health insurance, clinical research, and all different types of public health services and education. So we are one of the largest federally funded agencies in the government. We conduct criminal investigations, civil investigations, and some administrative cases as well. And we also do protective operations, which for those of you who are not familiar with that, if you've ever seen the Secret Service protecting the president, we would also assist with protection details for the secretary for HHS. So that's a cabinet member that we do protection details for, which is very similar to what Secret Service does for the president. Our national headquarters is in Washington, D.C. We have 48 field offices, and we have 10 regional offices. And you can see that New York is a regional office, and that's the office that I work at in downtown Manhattan. The New York office covers, it's region 2 for the country, and we cover New York, New Jersey, Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands. And we have offices in Albany, Buffalo, Edison, and Puerto Rico, as well as Manhattan. We have 1 special agent in charge, who is the boss for the entire region, and 4 assistant special agents in charge. Those are the first line supervisor. And we have 41 field agents. So the field agents are what I do. We go out into the field and conduct our investigations. We also have general investigators, research specialists, and administrative officers. So when you're looking for a job with the federal government, there's all different types of series that would define what that job is about. And I'm a series 1811, which is a criminal investigator / special agent. So I'm going to go through the requirements very quickly, because I think it's important that if you want a career in federal law enforcement, that you know what you would have to do in order to get there. You have to be younger than 37. And the reason that they have that is because we have a mandatory retirement at age 57, and you have to do at least 20 years as an agent in order to retire. So that's why you have to be under the age of 37. You need a minimum of a bachelor's degree, and it does not matter what your degree is in, as long as it's a bachelor's degree. You have to pass a medical clearance and background investigation, because we all have a top secret security clearance, which gets refreshed every 5 years. So not only do you have to pass it at first, but you have to maintain it every 5 years without, so that you can't do anything, you can't get into any kind of trouble. And then you have to successfully complete all the training requirements. The initial training is 4 months down in Glencoe, Georgia. That's the basic training. And then we have several other trainings after that. So you have to successfully complete all of those trainings. The additional trainings that we have are run by our NTOB branch, which is down in Maryland. Pretty much the funding that we have will allow us to do any kind of specialty training that we would ask to take. We have the ones that we have to pass are the firearms qualifications, the control tactics, which is the same thing as like a defensive tactics, to be able to use our hands in a situation to control the situation. We have non-lethal simunitions training, which is when they give us simunitions weapons, which is just a modified weapon it's like a paintball gun. And they put us in situations that we would likely encounter while we're out in the field. Anything from just having a conversation with a potential witness to a shooting scenario. And then we would have to react with the non-lethal simunitions. So they would be able to see how we would respond in that situation. Annually, we qualify with a rifle, an automatic rifle. We have an annual physical test that we have to pass. We have continuing legal education, which we are always responsible for, because we have to make sure that we are up on the federal and state laws. And then we have in-service training. Some more of the specialized training that we have, the specialized training is optional, so that's not mandatory training. The controlled tactics instructor training, which I've been through, and that teaches us how to teach the rest of the field agents to do controlled tactics or defensive tactics, which includes, pepper spray and hands-on combat. We have firearms instructor training, which is what it is to teach the agents how to teach firearms. We have evidence custodian training, which I am also an evidence custodian in the region. And what that means is that any evidence coming into the office from the field, I would process that. We have emergency medical responder training, which is like EMT training. We have technical surveillance agent training, which is, I'm a tech agent as well, and we do the body wires for operations. We do pole cameras, GPS trackers on vehicles. What else?
Coffee mugs, clocks.
Yeah, we have a variety of different items, such as coffee cups and pencil sharpeners and wall art that contain recording devices. both audio and video recording devices that we set up for different parts of our investigation. Lock neutralization and bypass training, I've attended that too. That's lock picking. So that was a fun course. We have physical fitness coordinator training, and then protective operations training, which goes back to the protection details that we do. So the bulk of my investigations involve healthcare fraud. This is just an overview of it. I don't have to get too detailed into it, but we investigate doctors, hospitals, any kind of physician service, a lab, a medical equipment company, a pharmacy, and we do a lot of cases on prescription drug diversion. And I can get into explaining that a little bit later on. But these are the areas that we spend the majority of our time working our cases in. We also investigate child support enforcement cases. And this is when an individual does not pay their child support and they live in a different state. It becomes a federal crime, and we would investigate that. We do grant and contract fraud, which is just money that's been given out by my agency to different entities, and we would investigate any type of fraud within that as well. This is a picture of, I think it's the most current, but it's one of our fugitive homepage. We have a website where it lists all of the criminals that we have arrested that are currently fugitives and are not, either not in the country or they're in this country and they just can't be located. This is a case that I worked with the Orange County Sheriff's Office, and we started a child support task force up there so that we could assist them with bringing in some of their child support subjects from different states that don't necessarily qualify as a federal crime. So Dee Dee Riggs, she's in the picture in the giant sweatshirt. She was the #1 deadbeat in Orange County, according to the sheriff's office. At the point we arrested her, she owed $329,000 in child support for 3 of her children that lived in New York in foster care. And she was living in Pennsylvania to avoid being arrested by the Orange County sheriffs. So family court issued several warrants for her, and they were not able to get her because she was just across the state line. So we came in and assisted, and she was also sentenced to, she was arrested in May and she was sentenced to prison. That's my special agent in charge. He's the boss of the New York region. We have a lot of media coverage on cases that we do because there's a lot of government money being used. So we get the spotlight a lot of times on the cases. So we have a lot of media coverage. And Crime and Punishment was a series put on by, I think it was CBS, where they followed the field agents around for 6 months to see what it is that what kind of work we actually do. And they aired a really nice special, and so I can get that to Miss Kim or Mr. Dan if they're interested in disseminating it. I wanted to show this picture because when people typically hear about healthcare fraud and prescription drug diversion, they don't realize the volume of different organized crime operations that are involved, because the reason is that a lot of the times to own a pharmacy, to own a medical equipment company, you don't have to be a medical doctor. And when that happens, and there's a lot of money to be made. So anytime there's a lot of money to be made, there's a lot of organized crime that's involved. This was a search warrant we conducted on a medical lab that was, doing lab tests and lab results. And this is what we found during the search warrant. So I don't know if you can look at that bottom picture, but there's like ninja swords and ninja stars, and I don't know if they were collectibles, but we're glad that we got them before anybody else had a chance to use them on us. I wanted to talk about the Dr. Barry Sloan investigation. That's Dr. Sloan. This was a case that I worked with the New York State Medicaid office. So we had a joint investigation on Dr. Sloan, who claimed he was a pain management doctor and he had practices in New York and New Jersey. He was a licensed osteopath with a specialty in sports medicine. So the reason that I point that out is that even though he was an osteopath, which is a different type of doctor, there was a lot of, he was a self-proclaimed pain management doctor. Turn this off. 1 second. I just want to turn off the menu here. Okay, so that's the reason why this is important. So Dr. Sloan was flagged as an outlier with respect to the number of controlled prescriptions he prescribed. So when I was talking before about us doing prescription drug diversion cases, what I want to explain is that we do not do investigations with illegal drugs. So prescription drug diversion is legal drugs. So prescriptions that are either prescribed by a doctor or picked up at a pharmacy that are being used illegally. So they're legal drugs, but they're being used illegally. And you'll see what Dr. Sloan was involved in, but I wanted to make that clarification. So when he was an outlier, it just means that as an osteopath with a sports medicine background, he should not have been prescribing the volume of pain medication that he was actually prescribing. He was also the 4th highest prescriber of Subsys, which is a very, very, very powerful drug used to treat pain. So it's a pain medication, but it's only usually used for, okay, hold on 1 second. Sorry, I'm back. Can everybody see me? Okay. So he's the 4th highest prescriber of Subsys. So it's a powerful narcotic for late stage cancer patients, which means that people are set to die, and it shouldn't be used by the everyday public. This was a joint investigation with New York State Attorney General's office, and we work a lot of cases with them. We work a lot of cases with other agencies as well. But Dr. Sloan would see about 30 patients a day, and in addition to charging the insurance companies, he would charge the patients for $200 cash for an oxycodone prescription. Now, oxycodone, for those of you that don't know, is it's a pain medication, but it's highly addictive. So it should only be used when it's necessary. And as a doctor, he should not be she should not be charging cash for any type of prescription. So when we arrested him in June of 18, and the indictment was 74 counts, which included manslaughter charges, because he sold fentanyl related and oxy to a patient who later died as a result of that medication. So we were able to charge a doctor in a manslaughter case with a manslaughter charge for his role in using these prescriptions illegally. These are some of the things that he prescribed, and we are in an opioid crisis. So the Oxy 30 is what he was prescribing, and during the time that we investigated him for, he had 26,000 prescriptions that he had written and sold to 2,000 different patients. So the total pills were 4 million pills, which have a street value of $100 million. And so Sloan's patients were paying for the prescription, getting the medication, and selling them on the street. So there's 4 million pills that he allowed to be out on the street. And we have several other individuals we believe we can tie to their deaths, we can tie to his prescribing habits. In October of 2019, he was sentenced to 9 years in prison. These are some of the tools that we have when conducting our investigations. So besides going out and talking to witnesses and doing surveillance and getting bank records and paper information, We use consensual monitorings, which is what I was talking about before with the body wires. We would wire up a witness or a cooperator who would go in and be a part of the discussion about the crime. We have Title III intercept and wiretap, and what that means is that it's a phone tap, so we can listen to people's phone conversations to see what they're talking about. We have mobile tracking devices, which are GPS devices that we put under people's cars, and then we can see where they're going. Pen registers, trap and trace devices, video monitoring, and pole cameras. A pole camera is simply just, it's a camera that we put on top of a utility pole so that we can get a big picture of the area that's around it. And this is one of my favorite surveillance tools to use. It's our surveillance vehicle, which is a retrofitted Toyota Sequoia. So it fits in a lot of different neighborhoods. It doesn't stand out as a police car. It has 8 external cameras, and 4 of them have a zoom capability. And the zoom can be done, and the cameras can be run from either inside the truck, which you'll see a picture of, or remotely. So we can remote in with our laptops, and we can get to the cameras and change them around. We don't have to actually be in the truck. It has video and audio recording, an interior command center, which you'll see a picture of, and then remote access. There's really only room for one person in the back. This is what it looks like from the outside. So if you were, driving down the street, you wouldn't think that looks like an undercover surveillance vehicle. The picture on the left is actually in the trunk of the truck. And what you're seeing there is 12 car batteries. So there's a car battery in the front of the truck, which runs the actual truck and all of the radio, the air conditioner, and the stuff that would be run by a normal car battery. But the equipment in the back it takes 12 car batteries to run the equipment. And the truck can run for, how long can it record before it has to be charged?
Wait,
12
like
hours?
miles?
12 hours.
Okay.
Like 10 to 12 hours of recording time live before the truck has to be plugged back in and the batteries recharged. The picture on the right is this video screen in the command center in the back seat. And this is some more pictures of the command center. So this seat is across from the video monitor, where we can either sit there. Behind this seat here on the right, you see the wall. On the other side of the wall is the front of the truck where the driver would be. So you get an idea of the setup, but we've done several different ways. Either somebody would drop us off with, the driver would drop the truck off with an agent in the back who's monitoring it live, monitoring the cameras live, or we would just park the truck, set up the cameras, and then remote in to see what we can see from our office or from another off-site location. The picture on the left shows the front of the truck where the driver and the passenger sit. And if you look at the passenger's headrest, if you took the passenger's headrest off, it would look like the picture on the right. So there's a camera behind there. Depending on which angle we would want to get a view of, we would be able to take that headrest off and see straight out the front windshields. Those are pictures of the door. So the sheet, the covering that you see in both pictures is to protect the agents. That's Kevlar, so that if anybody were to shoot at the windows, it's a bulletproof covering to protect anybody that's inside the truck. The doors themselves are not bulletproof, but the actual covering over the window is. And that small little square in the picture on the right is if we needed to actually look outside and see what was going on outside. They are very tinted. Okay, all ready for questions. Let me can stop sharing this unless anybody needs to write that down.
Okay, so guys, you can send your questions to me and I will relay them to Special Agent Cameron here. But I have a question here from Norman. How dangerous is travel for investigations?
Travel, what type of travel do you think that means?
I don't know. He didn't specify.
Okay, so I can tell you that we travel all over the country and sometimes into other countries, and we always fly with a partner. We do most of our work with at least one other partner, so because there's safety in numbers. We train together so that we are aware of how each other would react in different situations. And then anytime that we travel by car, we drive unmarked police cars that have lights and sirens. And if we're gonna fly, there's my assistant here. If we're gonna fly anywhere, we fly armed. So we would often be on the plane armed. I hope that answers the question.
Okay, thank you. The next question we have here is from Cooper. What is the hardest investigation you have done?
Cooper, that's a good question. Hardest investigation.
The bus.
Okay, so the hardest one for me, and we do a lot of white collar cases. So that means that we are looking through a lot of documents and a lot of records. But my hardest one is actually a funny story, because I've been doing this now for 22 years. So I've been around the agency for a long time, and I've been working in Manhattan that entire time. And so, but I have a take-home police car. So when we were arresting Dr. Sloan, it was a state warrant. So that means that the state investigators actually have to be the ones to put the handcuffs on him. And I cannot do that because I'm not a state, it's a state warrant. The other issue with that was Dr. Sloan lived in New Jersey. So the New York investigators cannot arrest him outside of New York State. So we had to wait for him. Every morning he took the bus into Port Authority, and then we were gonna wait for him to get out at Port Authority so that the state investigators could arrest him. So when I asked them what they needed me to do as far as the ops plan, like what we were doing for the arrest, they said that we're gonna need you to ride the bus with him. And I said, I don't know how to buy a bus ticket. I've never been on a city bus before. So that was probably the hardest part of figuring that out. But yeah. No. So then I got on the bus with him, and he was talking to me the whole time, and I was secretly taking pictures of him to send to the group. And then when we got out, we were talking, and when we got out at Port Authority, he was like, I'll see you later. I'm like, we're gonna be seeing each other all day. So.
Okay, what inspired you to get into law enforcement?
What inspired me? Well, I was initially going to go to school for commercial art, and then my dad was against that because he felt it was more of a hobby. So I went and got a paralegal associate's degree, and then ended up not wanting to be a paralegal because the lawyers make more money. So I went to school for my bachelor's, and when I did that, I went for criminal justice, and I really just liked the whole concept of, deep investigations, and I got a job right out of college, so I was lucky. But I like the idea of trying to find the needle in the haystack and put a puzzle together, and that's what an investigation is. You just put pieces of the puzzle together.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
It is a lot of paperwork.
A lot of paperwork. Yeah, sounds like it. Let's see. So guys, if you have any more questions, you can send them in over to me. We don't have a whole lot right now. Have you ever done a case that has been on the news?
Yes, several of them. Mm-hmm. They tried to protect our identity when they are covering operations, so they'll either blur out our face, or they definitely won't say our name, and that's for reasons that we all do undercover work. So they can't put my picture on the news and say Special Agent Cameron arrested this guy.
Okay, here's another question from Cooper again.
Cooper's
how many investigations have you been on?
Wow. Cooper, that's a good question too. So I'm gonna guess over 22 years, probably about 400. And the reason I have that number is because I'm trying to get an average per year. But our investigations are not like the Law and Order investigations on TV. So since they're white collar cases, they're very detailed, and a lot of them involve following the money. So we have to wait. We send out like bank subpoenas, and we have to wait. And then when we get the bank subpoenas, we have to analyze the bank subpoenas. And then we find another bank, and then we have to get those bank subpoenas. So they're long investigations. Our average case, it takes about 2 to 3 years to prosecute from beginning to end.
Okay. Now we have a bunch of questions coming in.
I have
Oh. Has a question too. Put him in the queue.
All right. So we have a question here from Norman. What's the difference between a state warrant and a normal warrant?
Okay, Norman, that's another good question. So it's not a difference between a state warrant and a normal warrant. It's the difference between a state warrant and a federal warrant. So when we work with the state investigators, if the state is prosecuting the case, that means that their attorneys are the ones that are doing the charging, then it would be a state warrant, which has to be executed by a state employee. So even though we're doing it as a team, it's very technical with the state investigator has to be the one to actually cuff the subject. The same for if we are taking it to a federal prosecutor, then a federal agent has to do the actual arrest, even though we work with the state. So it's the difference between a state warrant and a federal warrant.
Okay, I have a question here from Kim. How do you find new cases?
Wow, I took that slide out too, Kim. Mostly for me is just word of mouth with other agencies. So I have a good group of folks that I work with from DEA, from the state, from the Bureau of Narcotics Enforcement, all different agencies that I have points of contact with. So most of the time, they'll call me or I'll call them and say, listen, I stumbled upon this. Are you guys interested in working together? So that's one way that we get cases, and I get a lot of mine that way. Other ways are through headquarters. There's hotlines where people can call in hotline complaints. We get written complaints. We get sometimes walk-in complaints. And a lot of our stuff also does come from local police departments who they don't have the capability to work a huge white collar investigation like we do. So they would bring it to us, and then we would work it and just keep them involved.
Okay. So I have a question here from Caden. What was your most dangerous investigation?
Most dangerous investigation. Oh, what? The GPS tracker. Yeah, that probably I had a case years ago with a durable medical equipment company, and what that is they own the company. Like sometimes you'll see it in pharmacies. They have wheelchairs or canes. This was a big durable medical equipment company that had a lot of different types of equipment, and it was an organized crime owned, Russian organized crime. They were the owners. So I had to be very careful with that, because at one point they found in routine maintenance on my work take-home car, they thought they found a GPS hardwired tracker on my car. And the only time that could have been done was when it was in my driveway. So that was a secondary, concern. It turned out to be part of the radio speaker, for our internal radios. But for about 2 weeks, I was concerned that the Russian organized crime folks were doing counter surveillance on me.
Okay, I got another question here from Andrew. And I don't know what this means, so hopefully you do. But have you ever used the RICO app, the RICO?
Yes, it's an organized crime. It is a charge that we would use for racketeering with organized crime, but we've charged it But it's a very difficult charge to have stick, because there's a lot of requirements and a lot of components that have to be proven, that even though we've used it on occasion and have charged it, it's usually the other charges that we have along with it that they end up pleading guilty to.
Here's another really good question from Norman. How is your job different due to COVID-19?
Good question. So for right now, since March, we've been actually working at home. We do have that ability normally for a couple times a week, just to be based out of our residence as opposed to going into Manhattan. And it's normally a convenience thing for us, because a lot of the agents travel from pretty far, and it could take me about 2 hours to get into Manhattan each way. What's changed for us right now is twofold. So we are working at home more, but we also now have a lot of cases that are COVID related with regard to labs and pop-up COVID-19 testing centers and clinics. So we're much busier, but we're also more limited in what field work we can do. At this point, we need management approval to go out and do anything that's not in our residence. So we've been allowed to do things like go out and do surveillance, as long as we are in our own cars and not with anybody else, and we have another car in the proximity. So we're doing 2-car surveillances, but only one agent in the car. We have not made any arrests in the last couple of months. Actually, one of my coworkers has, but we've been also fit tested with PPE equipment. So we have all of the equipment that we need when we do go out in the field.
Okay. I think you said that Cameron had a question too, right?
Good question.
Didn't you not finish like a op or something before when COVID happened? Like, were you in the middle of one during?
Oh no, I was not in the middle of an op. No, I was prepping for trial on 2 of my cases. So 2 of my cases were supposed to go to trial in federal court about 2 weeks after COVID started. So we were in trial prep mode, and that's since been pushed, and the courts are closed. So we won't be able to do that trial until probably October, if the courts are back open at full capacity.
I have another question from Kim here, and I think it's her trying to figure out when you can come work at BOA during the summer. When are you going to retire?
So I'm eligible. Who was the question? Was that?
That's from Kim.
Okay. I am eligible to retire in 3 years. So our retirement is you have to have 20 years in and be age 50, or have 25 years in at any age. So if you do 22 years and you're 50 that same year, you can retire at 22 years. But I'll have 25 years in by the time I'm age 48. So I don't need that age limit. I can go at 48 in 3 years, Kim. Actually, let me check my retirement calculator. Wait a minute. Hold on.
2.
Wait, I think it's less than 3.
I think it's 2.
Hold on.
So will you retire or will you stay on?
Okay, 2 years, 8 months, and 18 days.
And 8 hours and 15 minutes and something
So you're
seconds.
counting down.
Yes, I will retire. Maybe not at that point. So I'm eligible that April. I may have to wait till that January. So there's no, if you don't wait until that year that you turn 50, then there's all sorts of penalties on your 401k. So if I don't wait, then if I did any withdrawals, it would be a penalty until age 59 and a half. So financially, it makes sense for me to stay until that January. But then I'm going to retire because I love my job, but I'm ready to try something new. I'm ready to be on a new adventure.
So I have another question here from Norman. What is trial prep like?
Trial prep is a headache. So what we have to do is we have to basically get everything ready for trial. We have to have all of our witnesses prepared, which involves, prepping them, which means having them come in and asking them the questions that we would ask them on the stand so that they don't have any surprises from our end. We also have to prepare them to be cross-examined by defense counsel, which we can never prepare them for, but we can always come up with some questions we think they may have. We have to get all of the documents ready. We have to get the exhibits ready. It's long days heading up to a trial and during a trial, but if you ever have the opportunity, because most trials in federal court are public, I would definitely try to get down there to see one, because they're open to the public. And it's very interesting, the different procedures. Like I had my first trial with a state case came maybe less than a year after a trial on my federal case. And the rules and the regulations are so different in federal court than they are in state court that it was a really good learning experience. Like in federal court, we can testify to hearsay, which just means that I can say that that person told me this, and this is, I believe, is fact, meaning, different entities. Like if I have a document from a bank, I can present that to the jury, and I could say that I am a special agent. I received this via subpoena from the bank, and this is an actual document. Whereas when I was on trial with the state has to have someone from the bank come in to testify that that document is accurate. So it's learning new things depending on where you are, and also just being prepared for anything that happens with a trial. No.
Okay. So I have one final thing I want to ask. If you have any advice for any of our scouts here who may be considering a career in law enforcement, would you like to share it?
Sure. Well, first you got to stay out of trouble, because just remember, for all of you, that no matter what decisions you make for yourself currently can affect your future, and criminal acts, or even something that you think is just, having fun with your friends, can affect your future. We've had a lot of candidates come in, even for internships. We have internships available for college students that they have one thing that they did when they were, younger, and it basically got them to not, to be pulled off the list of qualified interns. So my first piece of advice would be to just be mindful of the decisions that you make, and think not only in the moment, is this the right choice, but also, down the line, what, is this going to be the best thing for me? I'm also going to say to pay attention in school, because there's a lot of reading involved with my job. There's a lot of reading comprehension with the laws and the federal statutes, with bank records, and there's also writing. So we type reports all the time. So you have to be good with the computer skills, and also able to just know like what you're reading, and reading comprehension. And then when you go to college, you don't really need to major in criminal justice. We hire people from all different types of college backgrounds. We have, I can't think off the top of my head, but you don't need a degree in criminal justice to get a job in law enforcement.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us today and giving us all this information. It was a wonderful presentation. Oh, yes, of course.
Cameron wanted me to tell you guys about a recent search warrant that we conducted. It was an arrest of several individuals, and we had a search warrant to conduct at a residence in Yonkers, and it was a small house. And I was on the search team, and we were told that there may be some cash, and there may be some high-end shoes and bags that she was reselling. And so the house was probably 1,500 square feet. And when we walked in, it was floor to ceiling boxes of brand new sneakers, like the high-end Chanel shoes, and all of the high-end bags. And how much cash did we end up finding? Yeah, it was just under $1 million in cash laying around the house, and jewelry. And we ended up having to get a tractor trailer in order to take all that stuff back to the evidence room. So that was a fun case he wanted me to tell you about.
Was your evidence room big enough for it all?
No, at that point, we did not take it to our evidence room. We actually took it to an off-site location that was the FBI. We worked jointly with the FBI. So an off-site, secure, manned facility, so that 24 hours a day, somebody is actually watching the stuff. our agency doesn't have the capacity to have like that kind of a warehouse, but they have it. So that's where we bought it. And it turns out all that stuff will actually be going to auction.
Awesome. All right, guys, can we get a round of applause for Special Agent Cameron? Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for joining us again. So Scouts, we have our closing campfire tonight at 7:30. It's got a lot of fun skits and songs, and we hope you join us for that. And we have, if you're in merit badges, make sure you get your work in by 11:59 p.m. tonight for all your badges. That's when it's due. If for whatever reason you can't, reach out to your counselors, communicate with them. Let them know. They might be able to make some extensions. But if you don't let them know, they're going to turn in their paperwork and you're going to get a partial. So make sure you communicate with them. Make sure you get the work done. And we'll see you guys at our campfire. Thank you.
Bye-bye.